Absolute Superman has officially landed, and that makes us 3 for 3 on the Absolute comic book run so far. Absolute Batman, Wonder Woman, and now Superman have all been absolutely stellar additions to the mythos of these characters, and I have been particularly excited and invested in the drop for Absolute Superman, because if you couldn't tell by the channel's branding already, bit of a Superman fanboy. He's one of, if not my all-time goats when it comes to superheroes, and it always gets me super duper excited to see people have different takes on him and his surroundings and his adventures. But first things first, if you've not already, please be sure to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's just get into this video, because Jason Aaron, Rafa Sandoval, and Ulysses Iriola have absolutely killed it with this fucking chapter. The premise of Superman in this type of setting is super duper interesting to me. Almost everything that we know about Superman Kal-El is completely different from the base, but this chapter opens up showing us Krypton, and this is the part of the origin that isn't too much different from the traditional Superman setting, because Krypton in this world is a paradise of technology and a thriving ecosystem. However, they are flying a little bit too close to the sun here, no pun intended, but Lara and Jor-El both being formidable scientists in their own right here. However, Lara was shunned from the upper echelons of Krypton because she was just kind of unruly, and Jor-El, he was also shunned because he warned of the planet's eventual downfall at his graduation, so he ended up becoming a miner, which was mining for sunstone here. But Jor-El knows Krypton's days are numbered due to this excessive mining that he's already warned about, and again, this is obviously, that's not too far different from traditional Superman that we all know and love. However, this is where they are different, because we do cut to Earth in Brazil, which is already different because we're used to seeing Superman Kal-El just flying around the big US of A here, but it seems he spent a lot of time in Brazil, and from the way he talks, he's not been on Earth or in Brazil at the very least for too long. And one of the reasons I think this is because at the end of this chapter we see a Kal-El looking a lot older on Krypton before he's sent away, as opposed to the traditional baby Kal who has been sent away as Krypton's exploding. But I'm theorizing here he is only in his early to mid 20s, give or take, and he's only been on Earth for a short time based on the conversations that he has with Sol and his inner monologue. But he is investigating a mining operation here that has been run by the Lazarus Corp and upheld by the peacekeepers, the peacemakers here. Shout out John Sheena. I still haven't seen that series, I really need to. But there's a nice little parallel going on here, because Jor-El on Krypton wanted to stop the mining there because of the damage that it was causing to the planet, but here Kal seeks to stop the mining on Earth due to this damage that it's causing to these people. But instead, he's actually just trying to help the people of Brazil in secrecy by mining the diamonds for them so they don't have to endanger themselves in the future here. And this segment of the story does remind me a lot of the Man of Steel, who's like in the early days of that film, we see Supes exploring the planet and seeing what humanity is all about and how he could help, where he fits in, where his place is. And it might be a hot take, by the way, but I didn't actually ever hate Man of Steel. I actually really enjoyed that film. I genuinely enjoyed it, but don't flame me in the comments for that one, honestly. But I see a lot of what seems to be inspirations to that and this comic in this run here. But we are finally introduced to Kal-El himself as he speaks to one of the miners he helps, checking him out with the X-ray vision. And this version of Supes is very different looking. Longer hair, stubble, and overall grungy look that's not too common for Supes or Superman here. I actually really enjoyed this look. Again, it does seem very, very inspired from the Man of Steel film in the early days there, where we've got Clark just running around and seeing what's going on. But I actually enjoy the changes to the looks here. I'm always down to see different interpretations from him and different writers and artists' takes on there. But this is where we get to see the biggest changes that are noticeable for this version of Superman, because it turns out he has an Iron Man-like suit with an onboard AI that talks to him like his very own Jarvis, whose name is Sol, which I'm sure has very, very many of meanings within the Superman mythos, because the word Sol is constantly always there. It's always in All-Star Superman, DC Billion. You see it a lot, Solaris and all that kind of stuff. We also get this panel of Superman who is actually sleeping and recharging via a solar panel on the roof while his suit tries to wake him up, which again is extremely, extremely different from anything that we've known from any base version of Superman, because just seeing him sleeping in and of itself is strange. Like, Superman sleeping, what the fuck? But also having him having to recharge is very different. Typically, we're used to just Superman who just intakes the solar power via his skin here, like a plant, like a superpowered plant, but not this one. No, but as I mentioned before, this makes me think that Supes hasn't been actually on Earth too long. May possibly either be just adjusting to his powers while being on Earth, or that's just how this universe Superman works. He's basically given him a new challenge to overcome. He's kind of nerfed. Like, his unlimited strength is now limited by a time limit because he seems to run out of energy at some point here. Anyways, he ends up getting into a fight with the Peacemakers here as Sol finally wakes him up, where he proceeds to absolutely decimate a handful of them, while also having a conversation with Sol. And it's here that's mentioned that the Peacemakers are actually using a tech that is not from this galaxy, which we'll get to soon towards the end of the chapter. Now, I will say, I really, really love how Superman's suits look here. Absolute Superman feels sleek, but tough and intelligent, and it feels like they perfectly encapsulates the aesthetic of Krypton itself, the Kryptonian vibe itself here. But as this fight is going on, Sol and Kal are having a bit of a conversation about him saving the miners, to which Sol tells him this is a planet full of combustion engines, fanatical religions, and thermonuclear weapons. These people are never safe. Ain't that the truth? But Sol also mentions how Kal's solar levels are actually quite depleted, and again, this leads back to how I think Superman is being nerfed within this version of himself, or he's someone who just hasn't adjusted to his powers properly, and he hasn't adjusted to this sun on Earth. Anyways, a squad of Lazarus troops appears, and they tase him, which actually seems to cause him a lot of pain, and they are breathing themselves on Superman, who he is and what he can do, and we are actually introduced to none other than Lois Lane, who is heading up this task force of capturing Superman, and I couldn't help but notice she actually reminded me of Fiora Ull from Man of Steel here, and again, just as Absolute Batman seems inspired by a lot of Frank Miller's Dark Knight, Absolute Superman seems to be inspired by somewhat of Man of Steel. Maybe it's just my own personal bias here, but let me know what you think in the comments down below if you think there's other inspirations here. But for me personally, it seems to have a lot of vibes of Man of Steel here. But one other interesting detail here is that Superman's suit actually blocks out his face from surveillance. It's blurred out when we see Lois Lane looking at him on the screens here. So we're moving past the ages of wearing glasses for a disguise, which I'm kind of sad about, but I also kind of enjoy also. But Lois notes how the suit shifts and changes around him like a living armor, which we get to see on full display as he unleashes his heat vision at full blast, absolutely cooking this fucking idiot right here. But I do also want to point out how this suit does indeed change. It becomes more spiky and abrasive, and it does remind me a lot of the Destroyer from 4. There's so much inspiration that I see within this from all sorts of different mediums. But it does seem he doesn't have any control over this heat vision power yet, because he is asking for Sol to shut him off, which means it's like the suit is charging him but also limiting his power at the same time. I'm interested to see how that plays out. But Sol is also begging Kal to leave and recharge, and telling him some worlds just can't be saved, and urging him to return to the shadows and to never forget the lesson of Krypton. But before he can leave, he is actually handcuffed by none other than Lois Lane, who also handcuffed herself to him. Now, I would wager that this is Lois taking a gamble on her and Superman's sort of nicety, I imagine. She's probably thinking, if I handcuff myself to him, he isn't going to do anything. He might hurt me, but might not. But this chapter doesn't end here, because the final page shows us none other than this universe's Brainiac, and that is a phenomenal villain to start our boy in blue off against. And we're also shown the Kent farm, which is now property of Lazarus Corp, which could be why Superman has beef with them, but it could also just be shown us that this world in Superman, this absolute Superman's world, is completely different, and how different it is to the normal Superman's world, and how this version of Kal never actually got to meet the Kents, and that's how different things are. But finally, we are shown Jor-El returning home after the mining explosion, and he's rattled by the events. He seems like he's got a bit of PTSD going on, but I couldn't help but notice just how much he actually looks like the traditional Superman in comparison to Kal-El in this universe. But he basically hugs them, and he just wants to go home. Overall, this chapter was phenomenal, and I am super excited to see where this Absolute universe goes. I have been genuinely really, really fucking excited to see Absolute Superman drop, but that's everything from me. If you want to see my videos on the Absolute Batman and Wonder Woman, feel free to check them out in the link in the description. And as always, I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.